that doesn't get you into the Christmas spirit, I don't know what will. Spinal Tap and Christmas with the Devil as we are live from the Gateway Film Center. Back live for Fright Club Live.
I'm Hope Madden.
And I'm George Wolf, and we're from madwolf.com. And you can't see it, but we've got our Santa hats on. We are in the Christmas spirit, and we are going to talk about our favorites of the 5 best holiday.
I'm pretty sure that we can just
movies.
Flat out say it. These are the 5 best holiday
These are the 5
Yeah,
best.
they just are.
It's definitive.
Yeah.
And then we're going to follow it up here at the Gateway by watching one of those.
That's correct.
And so we are psyched. We've got some people here, at least a few, that haven't seen this one. And we've talked about it many times on the podcast.
We really have,
It's
yeah.
a classic,
It's an all-time
especially for
favorite.
this time of year. It gives you that warm, fuzzy, bloody feeling that is extra special in the month of December. But we'll get to that. We'll get into those holiday classics. But we had a lot of fun last week with the DJ horror,
That's
the
right.
radio horror.
That's right,
And,
because we were trying to scare George. Just scare him straight with stories about just DJ horror. And
But, as I figured we would, we had some pushback on not liking
Lords of Salem.
Lords of Salem.
And also,
So-
our senior Aussie correspondent, Corey Metcalf, pointed out that he wanted us to have Halloween 6
Right.
in there. And we all talked about Halloween 6 on his triple cast one time. And then he also mentioned, which I'd forgotten, in Psycho 4, there's
Yeah.
a radio scene, but it wouldn't have made it anyway.
I sometimes almost feel like we have to apologize for not liking Lords of Salem, but not really, because we just didn't.
No.
Now, Colossal Bandit is here. And
He's a fan. A
he's
lot of
fan.
people are.
For some reason, I think that I'm that way with almost all Rob Zombie. But now, you liked
Devil's Rejects. This is the
so-
second time in 5 minutes I've forgotten the title of that movie. Yeah, I like the Devil's
I
Rejects
told you
a
not
lot,
to have
actually.
that second beer.
Quiet, you.
But the first one that we talked about last week also almost qualifies for this one. It's
Well,
that
it
new A
qualifies. It
Christmas
just didn't
Horror
make it.
Story.
Yeah.
Didn't make it, but I enjoyed it. If you haven't seen it yet, it's out now. I think is it on demand?
It streams online, but I think they're actually going to show it here at the Gateway Film Center this week.
Awesome. So that is A Christmas Horror Story.
Shatner.
With Shatner as
Dangerous Dan, the
the DJ. And I'll tell you
I
what.
don't know what else you need, really.
He got jiggy with it. So that's the DJ horror, which was fun. But now we're going into the holiday horror, and when you start looking at these, you can really break them down in certain camps, right?
Yeah, I think that there are a million Christmas Horror Story movies, and I think that there are 2 different types. So you've got either the one camp where a child was traumatized by Santa Claus as a child, and that person grows up to be a serial killer, or you have an evil Santa who's just going to punish children. Like, these are your 2 camps. And American movies, generally speaking, are the first camp, the serial killers, your Silent Night, Deadly Night, Santa Claus, Satan's Little Helper, Santa Sleigh. There's like a million of them. And then the foreign ones are more likely to be the evil Santa, although Krampus, which Columbus-born Michael Daugherty just put out, that's obviously the evil Santa, or the Santa or anti-Santa.
I think I saw that did really well at the box office too. So
Yeah?
good on him.
Nice.
Yeah, that's awesome. So that's out now, Krampus, and there was a previous Krampus film, at least one,
Yeah.
from years ago.
And then Krampus shows up in A Christmas Horror Story.
Yeah, he's the Christmas devil.
He is the Christmas devil.
Maybe that's what the Spinal Tap song is
Could
about.
be.
Yeah, there's a bunch of those you mentioned: Silent Night, Deadly Night, Santa Claus.
Yeah. CLAWS. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Santa's sleigh.
And The Nightmare Before Christmas, which really...
Well,
Is
but I mean, it's goth and fantastic. It's you've got Bone Daddy and everything.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not a horror movie, but it's...
I was going to say, because I know how much you love that movie.
I do.
But yet it's not making this list, so...
No, because it's not really a horror movie.
Yeah.
And Gremlins is another one. It's sort of a holiday classic, but, it's not a horror film. I didn't put it on here.
Because I have no input whatsoever. So that any before we... She's laughing because it's true. So before we get to the actual 5, any more that deserve mention for not making the list?
Well, I do want to point out that Silent Night, Deadly Night, because that's the one I feel like I'm going to get in trouble for. It did not make the list. So I'm going to let people know that in advance in case you need to go. I know. I'm sorry. But I think when you see them, though, the ones that I've chosen, they're not like campy good. They're actually quite good. They're creepy and spooky and really quite worth watching. So there are like 90 campy, fun holiday movies to watch, but none of them quite made it because these are movies I actually think are pretty scary and well made.
Yeah.
Which is just what you're looking for at Christmas.
Yes. Of course. And we'll have some trivia on each of these for prizes. So you want to start with number 5? Cue it up. And this is from 2010, just a few years ago, and it's called Saint.
Sinterklaas kapoentje. Gooi een hele andere Sinterklaasavond voorgesteld.
I love this movie. It's definitely the fifth on the list. I mean, the next four are kind of a step above. But so when Christmas, it's actually December 5th. This movie is from Holland. Excuse me. So when Christmas falls on a full moon, for whatever reason, Sinterklaas is allowed to murder as many people as he wants to.
It's like the Purge. It's like the Purge for Christmas.
Right. It's like, for 32 years, apparently he's just been merry and giving out gifts. And this time he's just he cuts a lot of heads off. He bags up a lot of children. And then he's actually a bishop. Sinterklaas is a bishop. So like a saint, it's more of the actual idea of St. Nicholas. And so the movie is really sort of a thinly veiled Catholic.
Come on in. Join
Have
the fun.
a seat.
Yeah. Welcome.
Wag of the finger toward the Catholic Church. And it does that actually quite well, I think. But it's also grim and frightening, and the fact that it's pretty closely based on some actual sort of their honest-to-God holiday myth. Like, there's something super creepy about very snowy lands and their holiday myths, which we're going to cover here shortly. I just think this is a fun one, but it's actually gorier and meaner than I expected when I saw it.
One of the interesting things about this, we just saw the trailer. We didn't see the movie poster, but the movie poster actually won the award in Holland for movie posters. But at the same time, it was so offensive, at least to a general amount of the population, that they were actually taken to court.
They were.
About the offensiveness, the gory nature of the movie poster. Although years later, I think now there's some question as to whether that was a publicity stunt.
Is that right?
The whole court case. I don't know. But it was a funny juxtaposition there that it won an award and yet wound up in court for being so gory. Yeah,
the poster itself is of Sinterklaas on his horse, but he's got a very mangled, mutilated face. So it's sort of this very somber, Christmassy image, and then with this monster face. And at the time, parents, children. I mean, it's rated R. Children couldn't get in to see it, but parents didn't want to see the poster. They want their children who still believed in Sinterklaas to see this creepy poster. So they sued to make them take the poster down, which actually leads us to our trivia question.
Let's hear it.
There is a 1984 horror film that actually, in its opening weekend, outgrossed A Nightmare on Elm Street, which opened the same weekend. It outgrossed A Nightmare on Elm Street, but its advertising was pulled because parents were offended by its Santa Claus.
All right, what do you think?
Silent Night, Deadly Night.
That's it.
Yeah,
that is
it. Good job on the trivia. Moving up to number 4 of holiday horror from 1974, Black Christmas.
Hello?
Yes, it's me!
Who are you? For God's sake, what are you doing? Who is it?
I'm going to kill you.
Please answer me!
We didn't get him.
It's me, Billy.
One of the interesting things about this, the cast, first of all, there's a lot of interesting people in the cast, but Olivia Hussey, she told the story years later that she was actually auditioning and reading for Steve Martin when he was casting Roxanne, and she was going for the Roxanne part. And when they were in the interview process, Steve Martin told her, "Oh, you were in one of my all-time favorite movies," and she thought he was going to say Romeo and Juliet, and he said, "No, Black Christmas." And she didn't get the Roxanne part, but she actually also said that she took this role on advice from a psychic.
Wow!
That it would be great for her career.
And was it?
The jury's out. But it's interesting. You can tell by that trailer the different title.
Yeah, in Canada it was released as Silent Night, Evil Night, which is it's originally it's a Canadian film. It's one of the first slasher movies we did. We actually talked about it in our slasher countdown. It's one of the earliest slasher movies. So when you watch it now, it feels very stale because you already know what's going to happen. But the fact is that they kind of invented a lot of the architecture in this movie, like the creepy caller who's in the house, and the sorority girl pick-off, and just a lot. And it's, I think, very satisfyingly ambiguous about what's going on. There's this whole red herring that takes up most of the movie and doesn't really make any sense and is honestly never actually resolved. And so the climax, you should see it coming the whole time, and yet they don't ever try to explain it to you. I mean, I find it really, I think it's a really fun, super weird movie, regardless of the fact that there's a clear formula to it. And I think the reason that it works, in the same way that The Ring works because the videotape is super creepy, this movie works because the phone calls are very creepy. There's something just unsettling and wrong about them, and that's helps you overlook things like John Saxon's acting, or why don't the girls just leave the sorority house? I mean, I found it. I love this movie. I like to watch it every year.
You know, and it was directed by Bob Clark.
I did know that.
Funny things, you mentioned the voices. He's actually one of the voices on the phone.
Is that right?
Yeah, he supplied one of the voices. And there's a couple other people that were in the crew or whatever, but he supplied one of the voices. And you also talk about its reputation as one of the first slasher movies, which is true. And it's also probably the very first, seasonal slasher.
Yeah.
That type of movies. But I guess I haven't seen it. Maybe somebody has. There's a TV movie that I think kind of fights with it as the first to do the caller inside the house. There's a TV movie called Mousy.
I don't know that.
That starred Kirk Douglas.
Wow.
And it also has a plot where the caller is inside the house. So, internet fights will be about what came out first, what was produced first, what was written first.
And, of course, When a Stranger Calls.
When a Stranger Calls,
You guys all know this story, right? When I was in the 4th grade, I had to write a skit for the Tiffin St. Mary's PTO, and it was during Holy Week, it was during the week of Easter, and I wrote what I thought When a Stranger Calls would be. I'd seen the commercials. And so we murdered, all my friends. We killed, my teacher, Miss Teal, obviously was paying no attention, and so at PTO, with the nuns and the parents are all there, we all killed each other on stage because nobody realized that's what we were going to do, and I had no idea that it was an inappropriate thing to do.
And her parents
I
were
wasn't
so
allowed
proud.
to play with a lot of kids for a while.
Stay away from that twin. The other one, okay.
Right. The other twin is fine. The tall one, though, get away.
The other thing about the cast in this, Gilda Radner was almost in it.
Is that right?
Yeah. Gilda Radner was almost in it. And who is in it from SCTV? Andrea Martin.
Yeah.
She's in there. It's just such
She's Canadian.
Yeah, she's Canadian. But
all the Canadians are in
Keir
this.
Dullea from 2001, who, after 2001, you thought, this guy's going to have a huge career. He really didn't.
No, he didn't.
After that, but he wound up in Black Christmas. So it's got a lot of interesting things going for it. And as you say, things where you should see coming, but you don't.
So on to our trivia. Can I move on to our trivia?
You may.
Okay. Because Bob Clark, you guys are going to know this. So last month, I thought they were easy and they weren't. So this month, I'm going super all in.
And I started to give this away just a few minutes ago. But yeah, Bob Clark directed this one. He also directed another very famous Christmas movie. What is it? Front.
That would be A Christmas Story.
That is
Yes.
correct. So play them back to back and they just totally get whiplash.
All right, moving up to number 3.
This is a Fright Club favorite.
This is a Fright Club favorite for so many reasons. From 2006, Shaitan.
C'est quoi ce truc de ouf là-haut là?
Yeah, Shaitan, or as it's sometimes known, batshit crazy.
Yeah. This is such a movie. This is what happens when you're bad on Christmas Eve. This is what happens. You meet Vincent Cassel and Vincent Cassel. We showed this a couple months ago. This was one of our Fright Clubs, and I love this movie. And it's not one that anybody really has ever seen. It's not one that streams. People hadn't heard of it. Vincent Cassel plays a handyman who's just so nuts. It's like the weirdest performance ever. And a bunch of club kids get kicked out of the nightclub, and they decided they're going to go hang out with this girl in her country estate, and her handyman really is a bit hands-on, and things just go nuts. They just go, this movie is so weird.
Yeah, and it's one of those, it's a slow build, because you can tell as soon as he comes on the scene, he's just overly friendly, and weird things start happening. So this is not going to end well.
No.
But it's a slow build until that crazy, crazy ending. Where it's like, oh, that's his. Who is that?
Yeah, we're not going to give away any spoilers if you haven't seen it.
But do
for once.
It's actually there's the one scene with the gas station attendant has the TV on, and in the TV is Monica Bellucci.
Right.
Vincent Cassel's
wife.
Yeah. If you watch it or watch it again, watch out for that. Because
that's one of the things about Vincent Cassel, though, right, is that he is like a shapeshifter. He is so different looking from one film to the next. And in this one, he seems like this big, hulking, bow-legged, weird mouth freak.
Yeah.
Was that descriptive enough for anyone?
Well, I think, too, it almost looks like since then he might have had some work done.
Oh.
On at least on his teeth.
Well, maybe they're in his teeth.
Well, maybe. But, he did look bigger, though.
He definitely
than
did.
he did in some previous movies, especially some of the American movies that he's made, like the one Ocean's 12 or 13 he was in. But he's definitely a guy who looks different in different roles. But, man, he just has the crazy eye.
He does. And he makes every scene so unseemly. Like, every scene he's in is immediately uncomfortable. And it's not like... You're not sort of rooting for anybody. You don't really like anybody. It's not like the rest of the movie is all happiness. But every time he comes on screen, you're like, eesh, what's going to happen now? Look away.
Yeah, that was fun. We got a lot of good reaction when we played that one here for the Fright Club. So you have a trivia question for that?
I do. It's another really super easy one, like super crazy easy. So Shaitan is not the only French horror film that is set on Christmas Eve and features a pregnant lady. What's the other one? All right, up there. Yeah, come on.
Inside.
That's it.
Correct.
That's it.
Have you heard our fabulous prizes? We've got.
Would you like a Fright Club t-shirt?
Yay. What size?
What size? Medium, large, extra large? They're fashionable. Tom has wearing his today.
Yeah.
You can see how good it looks. Thank you.
Tyler. Appreciate that. Nicely done. So moving up to number 2. This is from 2010 as well. Good year. Rare exports.
We have Santa Claus.
He sees you when you're sleeping. He knows when you're awake. He knows if you've been bad or good. And he doesn't give up. Rare Exports, A Christmas Tale.
This is an awesome movie. We're not going to talk too much about it in case you haven't seen it, but it is a huge crowd pleaser. It's so much fun. An excavation in the Netherlands comes across something they shouldn't come across, and then all of a sudden reindeer are being killed and naughty children are coming missing. And the whole film is told from the point of view of the little boy who you see. And there's just this cherubic, adorable little boy who's like apparently the one good kid in the Netherlands. And so the film has such a sense of wonder about it. It's just like magical and wonderful, and at the same time just carnage laden. It's not actually as full on a horror movie as anything else on the list. I mean, it's very much implied horror, but what they do, like with different Santa Claus images, is so creepy. It's so creepy. And then what the reindeer farmers and everybody, it's just ingenious the way they band together to figure out the mystery and to take care of it. It's just a very satisfying, fun, creepy film.
Yeah, and actually, before we came here tonight, we were at home having a spirited conversation about this movie because if you watch it, certain questions come up about, okay, well, where do the elves come from, and what's the elves' role in this, and what about the reindeer? And a lot of it comes from the country of origin of this movie and certain ways they look at Christmas, and they look at things like reindeer, which are totally different than how we look at reindeer. But it's a really interesting take, and also when you bring in the title and what the rare exports are and what they're exporting is very interesting.
It's very clever.
Yeah.
The whole movie is just very clever.
Yeah, and you can tell that from the trailer. So that is number 2, and we have a trivia question for this movie.
I'm not going to try to pronounce this man's name. The director. His next film starred Sam Jackson as the president of the United States, who also gets a helping hand from another kid.
Big game.
Big game.
Big game.
Yeah, and I think that big game is every time I flip on HBO, it's on.
Yeah, it is. It is on all the time.
I haven't even watched it, but it looks bad.
You know, I want to live in a world where Sam Jackson is the president. I'm not lying.
Yeah. All right, that's number 2, and that takes us up to the top.
What could it be?
And that's the one we're going to watch here in just a little bit. And it's from 2007, Inside. All right, so Inside is number 1 on our list of favorite holiday horror movies. We've skipped away to a empty theater so we could talk about the movie. We don't want to spoil it for a lot of people that we have that in the audience that haven't seen it tonight, which is great. But there's so many things to talk about the movie, and we don't want to give it away.
You know, we've talked about this actually. It's made many, many lists, and it will make many more, no doubt, because we absolutely love this film. If you want to just sort of think about it in terms of a holiday film, you know, you've got the whole, pregnant woman, a baby being born on Christmas Day, and then they subvert everything in this movie. And it is, I think, it's hard to overstate how bloody, how over the top bloody this movie is. But if you're going to look from there are other movies that are worse, in terms of gore and blood, but they're not as good a film. Yeah. If you're going to measure it in terms of actually quite good cinema that is also as gory as shit, this is the top of the list.
Yeah, and definitely, like you said, right, in terms of turning the whole Christmas miracle on its ear. I mean, they actually say, "Oh, the baby will save us."
Yeah.
Again, spoiler alert here: the house number is 666.
Right.
But a lot of the bones of contention for people about this movie have to do with the reaction by the police.
Right. So if you're not really familiar with it, the woman, the main character, she's very, very pregnant.
Sarah.
She's Sarah. She's going to give birth on Christmas Day, and so she's been sent home Christmas Eve. And she was in a car accident. She lost her husband 4 months back. She's very glum about being pregnant, so she's home by herself on Christmas Eve because she doesn't want any company. She sends everybody away, and then she gets this knock on the door, and then it's a woman in black, and she wants in. Yeah. She wants in bad. Played
by Beatrice Dahl, who we talked about before, is awesome.
She's awesome. Actually, if you remember her, Beatrice Dahl, I know that we've talked about Trouble Every Day in the past, and she's super creepy in Trouble Every Day as well. And in this, she is one of my favorite all-time villains in this movie. Yeah. She's just perfect, just this sinister, wicked sense of humor.
And she will not be denied.
No.
That's the thing.
But so early on, Sarah calls the police. And so they've decided, because she is so handicappingly large, that they're just going to sort of swing by every so often just to make sure she's okay, right? Because of this intruder who tried to break in the house. And so when they come back around, it almost to me signals the point in the movie where anything goes.
Right. And a lot of people, most specifically Eli Roth,
sure.
In a recent interview has talked about that's where the movie lost him because in his view, and I think a lot of other people's view as well, their actions are totally unbelievable. In one of the things, when they show up, they have like a small-time criminal in
sure.
the back of the car, and they're kind of laughing about it. And I don't know what he did. It doesn't sound like anything much. Anyway, when the shit gets real and they get hip to what's going on in there, the one cop not only brings this perp, they call him, along, but gives him a gun.
But he has him. He has him chained to him,
tied to him.
Yeah, and which leads to some very uncomfortable horror opportunities. But it just still seems like, what, really?
It does. It gets a tad bit slapsticky, but for me, they don't lose me there. They really don't.
And I have to, if I may, just for a second.
Yeah.
It was a Bret Easton Ellis podcast where Eli Roth was complaining about films that are excessive just to be excessive.
Right.
Well, hello, pot.
Exactly.
Like, Eli Roth, did you see The Green Inferno by any chance?
Yeah. And actually, that's going to come up because he's going to be, I assume, one of the people we're going to talk about next week when we talk about directors who you either love or you hate.
That's right. Our friend Bridget Oliver, who also runs the Columbus Facebook page, KILL, Columbus Facebook page, and is just a great fan of horror. She's going to join us next week, and we are going to talk about directors, filmmakers. You got to either love them or hate them. Just those ones that are just contentious. Everybody is one side or the other. My guess is Eli Roth might make that list.
But the other big thing about Inside, when the one cop seemingly comes back from the dead and turns on the breaker and the lights, okay, is he a zombie? He looks like one. Is he just brain damaged because of the head trauma that he's taken? That is really a point where a lot of people have very differing opinions. You got to admit, with those eyes, he looks like a zombie.
Yeah, I definitely did not think he was a zombie. 100%. I don't think there's anything supernatural.
Right? That do. Is what I'm saying. I don't either.
No,
but he sure looks like one. I'll give you that. And I also love the scenes where it's very, I guess you could say, subtle, because you just see her, the killer, in the background, just pass, just for a second.
Yeah.
Just for a second. They don't hold it.
No.
And there's not too many things in this movie that are downplayed, but I love that. It just sets the tension. Oh, there she went. And then she's coming back, and she does come back.
And I love the way they light every scene where she lights a cigarette. There are like 3 or 4 scenes which is a close up on her face, and it's all dark, and you just see the cigarette sticking out of her mouth, and then the lighter comes on, and that's just the flame illuminates her super creepy face. I love Beatrice Dahl, but this is easily my favorite performance.
Another somewhat controversial director's choice is the shots where he goes inside the pregnant belly to the baby inside and how it's moving around and reacting to the trauma. Interesting.
Yeah, the film begins with a car accident, and so he introduces it there. He introduces it in the opening segment.
Yes.
It isn't my favorite thing about the film myself, but I also think that it fits, and I think that it's used well and consistently enough that it doesn't really stand out. But it is not my favorite thing about the movie.
Right. But there are many, many favorite things, and that's why it's number one on our holiday horror list, and we just had to sneak away and talk about it without spoiling things. So if you got your thoughts and want to shout back at us, by all means, always do that. Twitter is the easiest way, at MaddWolf, MaddWolf.
That's right. You know what? If there is a director, a filmmaker that you love or hate, that you feel is very contentious, let us know. And also, in 2 weeks, we are going to count down the 5 best horror films of 2015. So let us know what you think those are.
Yeah, maybe do on the hashtag Best Horror 2015. That might
love
work.
it.
And tweet at us and let us know, because we definitely want your feedback there. All right, we got to get back inside. We know there's more than a few people here that haven't seen this movie, so we certainly don't want to do any kind of spoilers whatsoever.
Yeah, so let's just skip ahead to the end. I want to do 2 things. I want to tell you that next week, Bridget is going to co-host our podcast, and we're going to do a love 'em or hate 'em. So the filmmakers that you love to love or love to hate, that's going to be with Bridget next week. And also, real quick, the following week, we're going to do the best horror films of 2015.
Also, we want to say that our January Fright Club.
That's right. Come back here for the January Fright Club Live, where we're going to do
A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night.
If you haven't seen it, it's glorious, and it is something that really must be seen on a big screen. It is one of the most hypnotic, beautiful visual films ever, and we're going to count down the 5 best female vampire horror movies.
Yeah, we hope to see you back here, and we're going to watch Inside here in just a couple of minutes. Thank you so much for coming out. Until next time.
I'm Hope Madden.
And I'm George Wolf. Hit it, Fright Clubbers!
Stay frightful, my friends!